Welcome to another Code Swag video. This episode is all about the Android hardware back button. We're gonna look at how to get the hardware back button working, how to use the back button to exit an Ionic Angular app, and finally, how to add and customize a back button to the toolbar. This video will be focusing on the back button in Ionic Angular apps. If you want to know how to do the same in Ionic React or Ionic Vue, then click the link in the corner of your screen or in the description below. If there's no link, then I'm yet to upload that video, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon so that you get notified when those videos are up. So basically what we want to achieve is, as you can see in this demo application running in the emulator, if we go to the second page, we are able to use the back button, the hardware back button, to navigate back to the first page. And we also have this back button in our toolbar, and again we can navigate using that button. And finally, when we click back on the home screen, we have this prompt here that asks us if we're sure we want to close the application, and we can actually close our app using the back button. So that's what we're going to build in this tutorial. As always, there are timestamps in the description below, so you can immediately skip to the part that interests you. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start off in our terminal and we want to create a new Ionic application. So we do that with the Ionic start command, and we're going to type in a name for our application. I'm going to call it back button in G. And we need to pick a template for our application. I'm going to pick the blank template. We're going to be asked to select a framework. This video is all about Angular. Okay, now that's going to download the starter and install it. And also we're asked if we want to integrate our app with Capacitor. That's absolutely yes. So we put in Y and press enter, and then the installation is going to continue. So if you want to know how to set up your Ionic development environment like I have in this tutorial, be sure to click the video showing up in the corner of your screen or check it out in the description below about setting up your Ionic development environment. I'll show you how to set up Ionic in the command line, and also how to link it with Android Studio, the Android Emulator, and with Visual Studio Code for the full development environment experience. Okay, we're gonna say no to creating an Ionic account. We don't need that. And that's it. Our application has been created. So I'm gonna type in CLS to clear the screen. That is, of course, for Windows. If you want to do the same on Linux or Mac, that's Control and L. That's gonna clear your screen. Okay, so next we want to navigate into our project folder. We type in CD and BA, so just part of the name of our folder, and then I'm gonna press tab to autocomplete and then enter. So I am now inside, and I'm gonna clear the screen again. Those commands are the same on Linux and Mac as well as Windows. Okay, so we are inside our application folder in the terminal, and we want to open our app using our code editor. So I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, and to do that we just type in code space and a dot, and that's going to open our application. Okay, so here we have our navigation panel or the Explorer, and these are the folders that make up our application. So we're gonna go to source and then app, and then we have this folder here that contains our home page. We have the home.page.html, which contains the view, and home.page.ts, which contains the logic, the code behind the home page. Okay, so I'm gonna close that, and I think let's fire this up in capacitor. So we're gonna run this using capacitor and in our emulator so that we see what our default application looks like on a device. So let's head back to the command line. So inside our command line, we want to run the following commands. First, we run Ionic build. That is going to prepare the necessary files for feeding into capacitor. All right, awesome. Next, we run npx cap add Android. That is going to add the Android dependencies to our project. And once the dependencies have been added, we can run npx cap open Android, and that's going to open our Ionic project inside Android Studio. Okay, so there's our default application running in the Android emulator. If we click on the back button, the hardware back button, you can see that nothing happens. There's no response. The button isn't really being recognized by our application. So those are some of the things that we want to fix in this tutorial. So let me shut down the emulator and close Android Studio, and let's get to work. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little bit of cosmetic work here. I want to just edit the home page. Okay, so I've made some minor edits to the home page. The main one being the inclusion of this button, and this button is going to link us to a second page. So we need a second page to link to so that we can use the back button to navigate backwards. So this necessitates creating a second page. So let's go back to the command line. And in the command line, I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to use the Ionic CLI to generate a second page. So we do that using the command Ionic G for generate page, because we want to generate a page, and I'm going to call it second page. So that's going to generate the necessary files for our second page. So let's head back to our code editor. Okay, and in our code editor, you see here we have the folder for the home page, and now we have a new folder called second page, and this has the files for our second page. So we can see we have the second page template here, and we have the logic for our second page. All right, so that's excellent. Let's now link to our second page. So now this button should navigate to the second page when clicked. Okay, so back in the command line, we just want to run Ionic serve, which will launch our application in the browser. So we just want to launch it in the browser because that's a bit quicker than the emulator. Okay, so we have our application running in the browser, and when we click on the button to go to the second page, we are able to go to the second page. So back in our code editor, let's close the home page template file, and I'm going to close these browsers, those folders. And what we want to do is we want to go to this file inside source and app called app.component.ts. Now, the reason why we're working in this file instead of any of the other TS files, like for example, the home.page.ts, is we want this code to apply throughout the application. So we want our modified back button code to work regardless of which part of the app that we're in. So regardless of the page, the specific page that we're in. If we wanted a particular piece of code for a particular page, then we would put that code in home.page.ts, second page.page.ts, etc., etc. But we want this in this tutorial to apply to the entire application. So all our edits are going to be done in this file. Okay, so let me scroll up and explain the code. So we are adding an import for the alert controller class from Ionic Angular over here. And of course, we're going to declare that in our constructor as the alert controller. And also in our constructor, we're going to be running this method called the back button event that's going to run after the app is initialized. So in our back button event method, we are basically calling upon the platform and hooking onto the back button. And in the back button, we're going to be subscribing to that back button event. Now, when your Ionic application is running in Capacitor or Cordova, Ionic Framework will emit an Ion back button event when a user presses the hardware back button. So when listening for the Ion back button event, you can register a handler that is going to be fired when that event is emitted. This handler can perform actions such as quitting the application or opening a confirmation dialog. Each handler must be assigned a priority, and by default, only one handler is fired per hardware back button press. The priority value is used to determine which callback should be called, and this is useful if you have, for example, a modal open and you likely wouldn't want the modal to close and then the app to navigate backwards, but you would want one to be done and then the other to be done when the back button is pressed again. So only running one handler at a time allows the modal to close, but still requiring another press of the hardware back button to navigate backwards. So that's what we're doing here. Here in the platform class, we are going to be accessing the back button, and then now we are subscribing to that back button, that Ion back button event with a priority. So the priority here is 10. And when that event is detected, we're going to be running this method here, the back button alert. So the back button alert is simply going to be running our alert controller with the message that, hey, you've just pressed the back button. So that's what's going to happen. So here I'm demonstrating how you can hook into the back button event and run some custom code. Okay, so let's go back and demo these changes. Let's make sure to save, and then we want to go back to the command line. And in the command line, we want to clear our screen, and it's the same set of commands. And what we can actually do is chain the commands together using the double ampersand. So Ionic build, and then we are gonna do npx cap sync Android, and then After that, we want to npx cap open Android. So the double ampersand helps us to chain those commands so that we just type them in once and then they run one after the other. Android Studio is open, Gradle is synced, so we click the play button to run the emulator. Right, this is our application. If we click the back button, you can see we get this alert that we just pressed the back button. So we're now successfully hooking into the function of the back button. And you can see when we're on the second page, the code applies. And when now we can't go back to the front page, the home page, because we are hooking into that function. But I think you get what I did there, because if we open the application on the home page, it's the same code is running. It's running on the home page, it's running on the second page. Okay, now let's add code to actually go back when the button is pressed and to also close the application. So let's close the emulator. Okay, so back in app.component.ts, we want to Okay, so let's walk through the modifications to the code that I made. Okay, so first we are importing viewchild from Angular core, and we are also adding an import for the Ion router outlet from Ionic Angular. And the router outlet is what enables us to access information about the navigation stack. Is there a page to go back to, etc. And next we are importing a location from Angular Common, and that's also going to allow us to navigate. And that's about it. Then here, we're using viewchild to hook into the router outlet, and we're gonna set static to true and use the router outlet variable to contain the Ion router outlet class. So this is necessary because we are trying to access the Ion router outlet. We're trying to access that component in certain places where we may not have direct access to it. That's where we have to use the view child. And as before, in our constructor, we are running the back button event after initializing the application. Right, and in the back button event, what we are doing is we are using the router outlet to check if we are able to go back. So in the navigation stack, is there a page to go back to, or we are on the very last page? So if there isn't a page to go back to, we're using the not operator here. If there isn't a page to go back to, we are going to run the back button alert. And we've also modified the back button alert so that it runs this alert message where it presents us with the message that we just pressed the back button. And it also presents us with some buttons. So there's a cancel button that basically just gets rid of the alert box. And there's also this button that says close app. And when the button is pressed, it's gonna run the exit app method of the app navigator. So basically, when this alert box is popped up, we can click on close app, and close app is actually going to exit our application. This is in the instance when there is no page to go back to. In the instance where there is a page to go back to, we're simply going to use the location class and the back method of that location class to go back one page. So this is the modification to the back button that we want. If there's a page to go back to, we're going to go back. If it's the very last page, then we have an option to use the back button to close the application. So very simple. Let's try it out in the emulator. Let's go back to the command line. And back in the command line, we want to run our chain of commands once again: Ionic build, npx cap sync Android, and npx cap open Android. Our project is open in Android Studio, Gradle synced. We're going to run the application. Our application has launched. Our application has launched and there's a white screen. So there's an error going on somewhere. So let's investigate that error. So let's close the emulator and close Android Studio. And in order to investigate that error, let's open our app in the browser. So we're going to do Ionic serve. We have access to the JavaScript console and we can see our error. We're getting a null injection error. There's no provider for Ion router outlet. Okay, so let me investigate this error and I'll get back to you. Okay, so I have found the culprit that is causing the error, and it's actually this router outlet, including it in the constructor. So putting it here in viewChild is sufficient. So if I just get rid of line 22, that should get rid of our error. So let me save this and check it out in our browser. Okay, let's go to the browser now. Okay, so we can see in our browser we still have that error there. That's because I haven't saved. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code. And in Visual Studio Code, you can see this dot there. That means that I haven't saved. If I save and back in the browser, you can see the error disappears and we now have the code working. But of course, we want to use the hardware back button, so we have to go to the emulator. So let's exit the browser. And in the browser, let's just terminate that running process. Clear the screen. And we want to relaunch the chain of commands: Ionic build, npx cap sync Android, and npx cap open Android. Okay, our application has launched, and there we go. We have our home page. If we click the back button, it tells us that we just press the back button. We can cancel. We can go to the second page. Because we are on the second page and there's actually another page to go back to, when I click the hardware back button, we go back. Only when there's no page to go back to do we then get the dialog that asks us if we want to close the application. And if we say cancel, we stay in the application, and then back, and we go back to the home page, and then back, we go back to the home page. But the moment we go on the home page and click back, then we are presented with the dialog, and if we say close app, then the application closes. And that is exactly the functionality that we want. Okay, so the final thing is we want to add a software back button in our toolbar. So we're going to add it to the second page. So we go to the second page folder, and we're going to click on secondpage.page.html, which is the template file. So let's close this drawer and we can work exclusively in the code. So to add it to our toolbar, we have to go inside here, the toolbar, and we have our title. So all we have to do is add some ion buttons. So we have our ion buttons, and we should make sure that the slot is at the start. And then we add our Ion Back button. Okay, and that's all we have to do really. That's all you have to do. If you wanted to customize, you could put in, using the the square brackets, you can put in some custom text. And you could even put in a custom icon, and you can pick any Ionicon and put the Ionicon name right there. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go for something really simple, which is just the plain back button. So if we save this and we run our application in the emulator, then we can check it out. So once again, from our command line, we run the chain of commands: Ionic build, npx cap sync Android, and npx cap open Android to launch our application in the emulator. Again, if you want to set up your Ionic development environment like I have set up, you can watch the appropriate video in the link in the description below. So here's our app. We're going to the second page, and you can see we now have this back button in our toolbar. So that's all we have to do to modify our hardware back button, the software back button, and all of that stuff. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure that you hit like, share it with a friend and on social media, and make sure to hit the red subscribe button and to click the bell icon so that you can catch more videos when they're uploaded. If you like my content and would like to support us, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/codeswag, or you can also go to codeswag.co.uk and go to our shop where you can buy some awesome tech gadgets that will also support this channel. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.